So I am here on campus at NAU, just finishing up some change order work on the Science and Health building. And I was just kind of reminiscing on my time here at NAU and kind of my winding path that led me here. So I thought maybe I'd walk for a minute and tell them a little story. I haven't posted too many videos where I just, talk about kind of my journey through life, but I've done a lot of things, and I thought it might be cool to start putting some of them down on video so I can see what I was thinking at this point in time in the future. So I started going to NAU as an adult. I'd actually already had a career in sales and in mortgages and was moderately successful. At one time I owned a business, didn't really do so well, had a lot of employees, had a falling out with my business partners, and ended up going to San Diego, where I met some of my really good friends, Reginald Hodges, Leon Cook, and had a really great time in San Diego. Had some lows, had some highs, but in 2007, the mortgages, we had the beginning of the economic collapse leading to the Great Recession. And what I was doing just really wasn't being done anymore, and I felt like I was going to have to start over in my industry and totally go a different way. And at that time I just had my GED. I dropped out of school when I was 16, and then went back my senior year for a semester just to enjoy being a senior and also just show that I could actually do well in school. And so I was uneducated. I've always been a smart guy, read a lot, so much information on the internet. I got by pretty good, so I decided I'm going to make a change. I want something stable. I like to get a salary. And working in mortgages for so long, I really felt like after all my years of doing it after the collapse, a lot of my clients were going bankrupt. They were having foreclosures. They had all these investment properties and negative cash flows, and truthfully, it kind of weighed on me. Like, I helped facilitate these decisions, which in retrospect were wrong. We can blame government policy and government meddling in industry that will skew the decision making of entrepreneurs and investors, but ultimately I was still a part of it, and a big part of it. I feel, not that I did a zillion loans, but the types of loans I did were the bad ones. Investment loans, high loan to values, adjustable rate ARMs, having people cash out all their equity in their main house, then buying like 5-6 investment properties in markets that turned out to be hyperinflated. So it just wasn't a good thing. Anyways, I got sidetracked. So decided to go back to school, did some research. I decided I wanted to work in construction, because no matter what happens to construction, even if the economy takes a turn and I get laid off or the company goes bankrupt, everything I built, I can turn around and see it. You can see this Science and Health building behind me. That's the first big project I worked on. For my current company, I interned on that project my last 2 years of school, and that building is going to be there for a long time. And every time I walk past, the campus of my alma mater, I get to see that and remember all those things, and it's a beautiful building, and I'm proud of it. So I decided to go back to school. I was going to do electrical engineering. Oh, bell chime. Looks like an hour just came. Lost my train of thought because of that. So I decided I wanted to do electrical engineering and construction management. So I started going to school. I made a plan. A lot of you that know me know that, planning didn't used to really be my strong suit. I kind of just decided to do something and do it and hope for the best. So I started school, did construction management, started taking my math classes, started taking electrical engineering. Got to about my junior year and realized that my degree path, I hadn't anticipated a lot of the co-recs and prereqs necessary for the electrical engineering classes I needed for my degree. And since construction management and electrical engineering have basically no overlap, it didn't really work out. So I got to my junior year of electrical engineering, I realized I still had 3.5 years of school left. So I made a switch. I did construction management, and I already had a whole bunch of math at this point, and I love math. It was my favorite subject, but I really struggled with it. I failed Calc 1 twice. I failed differential equations once. I failed my first physics class. I failed, though I didn't understand curves at the time, and I probably would have still got a B, but because there was people that I thought were doing worse than me based on their test scores and homework scores, and they ended up getting good grades. So that's just me not understanding how the system works. Anyway, so I stuck through it. I love math. It's one of the few universal truths that you actually will learn at university or really anywhere. Everything else is rather subjective or, could change, but 1 + 1 = 2. And math is beautiful like that. So I went ahead and pursued a degree in math as well. And apparently, in the entire history of the construction management department here on campus, I'm the only student to do that. And I probably wouldn't advise doing it, as it didn't increase my employment opportunities. Truthfully, I don't really do a lot of math at work, though. I use a lot of the tools that I used in math, Excel and some programming to analyze data and stuff at my job. And it helps you learn how to think more abstractly, and also understanding how to do a really advanced math problem can help you understand just how to break complicated things down into little pieces and solve them step at a time. So in that way, it helped my mind grow and become better at just thinking in general. So went to school, did that. No one else ever did math and construction management. Got this great job with Mortensen Construction. It's a fantastic company. I love the culture. I love my coworkers. We work on cool buildings. I don't really like the hours. I don't mind travel for travels. I like traveling, but I hate being away from my wife. But, they're conscious of the fact that I don't like that, and they try really hard to keep us in the same spot. But, it's construction. It's not like you can just say, hey, we're going to do construction right here so it's close to your house, or, we're going to start this one right now so that there's not a gap between big jobs and you have to go somewhere else. Projects come when they come, and it takes a long time to get a project off the ground. You got to bid it, you got to position. So, for what it is, Mortensen does a fantastic job. I don't really think any other construction company would do any better than they're doing. So I plan on staying here for a long time. So, my path from high school to university, was winding. A lot of I got in a little bit of trouble when I first turned 18. I didn't really like my home life at the time. Kind of got into it with my dad, didn't want to live with my mom. So I was homeless for a few months down in Phoenix. I was a very naive and kind of sheltered child. I didn't really understand how the world works. I'm a very trusting person, and, just lived that life for a while. It wasn't so bad, but it wasn't so great either. I have a lot of things I learned from that experience. Like, I don't really give panhandlers money because I met too many of them. But at the same time, I have a tremendous amount of sympathy for people on the street. For me, I was never a drug addict or suffering from mental illness. I was just kind of a rebellious kid who, felt I was living in what at the time was a religiously oppressive household, and my dad and, his second wife, we didn't really get along very well. So, I just moved out, stayed on friends' couches. It was when my friends had an abandoned car I would sleep in. It was in the winter in Phoenix, it was rough. But one thing I learned from that experience was, without having an address, I couldn't get work. I must have applied at 200 jobs. And a lot of people said, we'd love to hire you. You seem like a smart kid. You seem like you're trying to get out of your situation, but, you need an address. And, I never did get a job. Eventually, I got a little bit of trouble, moved back home, up to Verde Valley, got a job at a restaurant, and then moved to Tempe to go to university. Now, being my crazy 18-year-old self, I signed up for classes. God, I went to half of them. I was a weird kid. Wore rollerblades instead of shoes and dressed crazy and had crazy colored hair and just was, just expressing myself. And I felt kind of, like I said, slightly repressed and my individuality through high school. So I spent that year really, just exploring different things and having a good time. So after that went to ASU. Didn't really pass. I think I got some D's. failed a lot of classes for missing more than like 5 classes. But I still learned a lot. It was still fun. But I was going to go to school to be a teacher. I've always really liked kids. Kids have always really liked me. I have really refined sense of empathy. I'm really good about putting myself in someone else's shoes, even a child's shoes, so I can try to imagine how they're thinking and can talk with them in a way that communicates to them and helps figure out what their underlying thought process is, and also just using that psychological tricks to get them to do the things they need to do to, do better in school and whatnot. But, as teachers don't make a lot of money, I get a lot of respect for teachers. My brother AJ wants to be a teacher, actually, and he's going to be a fantastic one. But, I started selling insurance and, doing, some different finance stuff with some companies, and I started making some commissions, and I realized that I was already making just part-time almost as much as I was going to make as a teacher. So 18-year-old me decided, well, school's for chumps. So I dropped out and started doing sales, sold some cars, started doing mortgages, had some good success, had some failures, started a business with some friends, kept friends with one of them, became not friends with the other one, which is good riddance because he's a jerk. The other one's really cool, you know who you are. And then ended up going to San Diego, like I said, met Leon, those guys, wore suits every day, had really cool clients, went to seminars, spoke at events about finance and mortgages, and, really became good at talking with people. A lot of people don't realize, they think, oh, I'm not good at socializing. I'm not good at, convincing people to do what I need them to do. But like anything in life, that is completely and totally a skill that can be learned. You can read books, you can practice. There is literally, it's an entire genre of literature. And so I did that. I studied it hard. Had a really great time in San Diego. I was looking for love back then, but I just think I was in the wrong places, and it just wasn't working out. And when the collapse happened, I was living fast, I was making money, I was spending money, and I actually left San Diego in debt to one of my good friends. Quite a lot of money, I think. Well, I won't say how much money, but it was a sizable chunk. And when I came back to Arizona, my parents had some businesses. My stepdad had a construction company, a trucking company, and my mom and stepdad had a flooring store, and had been doing really great during the boom years. But they were starting to struggle, and I figured, I'll come. I worked a lot of times for free, which I guess my mom didn't even realize because her bookkeeper didn't tell her. So sometimes I'd call her and say, hey, I need to get a paycheck this week. I need like $500. And she thought I was asking for extra money, and she still gave it to me, bless her heart. It wasn't until after it all settled and she realized that I wasn't taking a salary or hourly wage. I was just asking for money, as I needed it to live. But in the end, we couldn't save those businesses. Our family learned a lot about business from that. When to cut and run, things you do in the good times to prepare for the bad times, and we're stronger for it. Took a long time. We're still dealing with some of that stuff. But so all of a sudden, I went from just balling in San Diego, popping bottles in clubs, weekend trips to Vegas on a whim, just, fancy clothes, new shoes all the time, to living that lifestyle, to going to Flagstaff. And truthfully, I actually found it incredibly refreshing. Going out and meeting people. I used to wear all my nice clothes, and in Flagstaff, I was really standing out like a sore thumb. One of the keys to dressing is to not underdress and not overdress. You really need to hit that target of kind of your situation. And so I kind of changed my style up a bit, and I'd meet these people, and I'd be talking to a girl, and they never asked what kind of car I drove, or asked me, what I do for a living. They just assumed it's Flagstaff, it's a college town. They're probably in college too. And we're all just here in that phase of our life. And I loved it. I started going on hikes, and I met a lot of people, and right away I met Joanna, who later became my wife, and she was just wonderful. I mean, I'd never met anyone like her. We got along great. She was incredibly thoughtful, incredibly beautiful. We had a lot of the same interests, and I just felt like I could spend like every minute of every day with her. So, and she told me that, this is the brokest point of my life since I was homeless, basically, and it wasn't that much better off, really, money-wise. A couple bucks in your pocket, a week at a time with literally no cash, sometimes longer. Struggling to make your bills. But she saw potential in me. She saw I was trying to better myself. She seen I'd already had some moderate success and decided to make a change in my life and career. And kind of late in life, I think I was 27, maybe almost 28 at the time. So yeah, I came to school. I studied really hard. I'm not the greatest student. I have ADD. I struggle with staying on task. Failed some classes, retook them, did really well. But I feel I learned a ton, and I got this internship the last 2 years of school, and I worked on this wonderful science and health building, and it's a beautiful building. Designed by Richard and Bauer, who just do really amazing buildings. This is kind of like the crown jewel of Flagstaff. It's like maybe the most expensive building. I'm pretty sure it's the biggest. And it's just really worked out. So, what's the point of all this I'm saying? I talk to people all the time, and they'll say things like, I'd really like to go back to school. I'd really like to make a career change. I'd really like to do this and that. But, if, when, I'll do it. And they don't. And the thing about life that I've learned is that every day, then tomorrow's coming, and every day yesterday is gone. And no matter what you're doing, that's going to happen. The future's in the future, and the past is in the past, and time marches on. And life is short. And if you want to do something different with your life, if you want to achieve a goal, planning is great. I could have done with a little bit better planning myself. However, my just do it attitude has served me pretty well over the years, and I'm getting better about my planning. I got a just do it attitude, but now my just do it also includes just do the planning. Write it down, come up with a game plan, think of all the angles, have an exit strategy, have contingency plans, So if you want to make your life better, if you want to go back to school, if you want to do anything great, someone once told me a really fantastic method. And I kind of used this method when I was figuring out what I wanted to do for my degree. So you're supposed to pick something amazing. Like, think of the type of person who would do that amazing thing. The person who told me this little process said that when he was young, he wanted to be an astronaut, and that was like his amazing goal, like a thing that only a handful of people in the world get to do. It's a pretty amazing thing to be an astronaut. So he said, what is an astronaut? What is someone like that? So he starts researching it. Who are some astronauts? Let's look at what they did. Oh, a lot of them were Eagle Scouts. So he joined the Boy Scouts, became an Eagle Scout. They did ROTC in high school. They oftentimes go in the military. So he did ROTC, got great grades, studied science and engineering and mathematics, and just did his best to be like 4.0 student, everything he could. And in the end, he didn't become an astronaut. However, the trajectory of his early life, from setting such a high goal and taking all those little actionable steps to get there, he's now a fighter pilot in an F-18, which is, again, that could be a goal into itself. A lot of people want to do that, and they never even get to fly, let alone one of the awesome planes like a F-18. That's pretty amazing. So, yeah, I had seen this movie where this guy was flying in a helicopter, and they were doing some jungle in South America, and it was hundreds of workers standing around, and it was apparently major problems. The movie's not even about construction, it's just the opening scene to kind of let you know who the main character is. And this guy gets off the helicopter, all these guys in vests and hard hats and clipboards, they all surround him and they start shuffling through paper, and he starts immediately solving problems. And I just remember thinking, man, that guy is so smart and so knowledgeable and so important that they flew him out on a helicopter, and you had hundreds of people standing around just waiting for him to direct them on what to do. And I thought, I'd like to be that guy. So that's why I was trying to do electrical engineering along with construction management. Ended up with mathematics, still great. And I'm on that path, and maybe I won't be a guy who gets flown around in a helicopter to solve big problems, but I'm going to build some pretty amazing buildings during the length of my career. They pay us well. I like what I do. I have a sense of accomplishment every day. And, that was years ago I set out on that path. And I knew I was a horrible student. I knew I didn't have any money to really pay for it. And, there's a few times where, it was a real struggle. I remember having a conversation with Joanna, and she says, we don't have enough money for you to go to school. Maybe you should take a year off and save money. I told her, I'm not going to do it. It was actually a pretty heated argument, one of our first ones. I just had to convey to her, I was like, I set in this path, I'm going to accomplish this goal. I was like, I don't care what I have to do, but I'm not going to stop, because I'm not going to lose my momentum, because starting something is difficult. Finishing is difficult too, but starting is oftentimes just as hard. So we came up with the game plan, we stuck it out. I graduated finally. It took 5.5 years. If I would have just done construction management, it would have been 4, but I did a little electrical engineering, and I did all that math. It takes time. So I did it. And now I'm kind of at that spot where I have accomplished the goal I set out, and now I'm setting loftier goals. Since then, I've, in conjunction with Mick and my family, offering, support, both financial and logistically, and putting a lot of trust in me to manage some family assets. We built a house and sold it. We did fantastic on that project. It turned out beautiful. We bought some land. We just got permit a week ago to build 2 houses on land that was owned by my great-grandfather, that some of my uncles had said was an impossible lot to build on, but we have permit and it's happening. So sometimes just having an audacious goal and taking just little tiny actionable steps and not stopping ever until you've accomplished your goal or shifted your goal to something that you can accomplish. And I would say that's my advice to everyone out there trying to do better. Not that I'm not a super successful guy, but I'm on the path. I think so. I think a lot of people in my life can see it. And I'm proud of it, but I just turned 35 last month. It feels crazy. I'm halfway to 70. Lord, how the time does fly. But that's kind of my point. It's flying by all the time. So every day I try to think of something. I try to do something to better myself, my situation, my family situation. I try to stay in contact with all my friends and family. My wife says I talk on the phone too much, but a lot of life is about relationships, and like anything, those things need nurtured and maintained, or they stagnate and can die. And friends and family enrich life, so it's really important to make sure that you have people close, and that you stay in touch with people. So I suggest doing that as well. But this video now is, good Lord, way, way longer than I intended it to be. I think I've paced back and forth from the chemistry building to the union twice. And this story really didn't have a point, so I guess now is as good as time as any to end it. But, there's so many things that's happened to me in my life. And, maybe I'll start doing some shorter little anecdotal stories that are more consumable than this massive ranting video. But yeah, I'll sign off. If you got goals, go for them. If I can achieve my goals with all my issues, then anyone can. So set a goal, make a plan, and do it. It doesn't have to be insane, but it can be, whatever your goal is. Figure out, shoot for the, that old expression, shoot for the stars, hit the moon. Figure out who is the person that you want to be, and then think back, what would that person do today? And that's a pretty good place to start. The internet's a great resource to figure these things out, so yeah, give it a shot. What do you have to lose? I've come so far since I was 18, literally from being homeless to, building buildings like, this shining monstrosity behind me. This is a extremely high-tech research facility, and I had a part in building it, from the time it was still in the ground, from the concrete rising up, everything inside of it, all the mechanical, the plumbing, the electrical, I inspected a lot of that, I tracked a lot of that, it's pretty cool. And I used to not really think college was so great, when I was 18, but now, seeing what I've done and knowing that I really wouldn't be able to do that without the education I got, I'd say there's some value in it, but when you're going to college, make sure you have a plan, make sure you have an exit strategy. Don't go into debt learning something it turns out you don't love. Do your research, be flexible, set big goals, and try to achieve them. So, yeah, I said I was going to sign off like 2 minutes ago, so I'm just going to go ahead and end it now. Keep it real, guys.